The Bobby O Show.
Welcome to the Bobby O Show. My name is Bob Potzner, and have I got a wonderful show for you today. Partly because I have a superb guest, and partly because November 4th brought me a lot of pleasure. Today's show is not about politics, but I gotta thank the people of California, Virginia, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania for what they did for our country yesterday, and we'll get into that in another show. But I'm rolling high today. Happens to be my birthday as well today, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. But I have a phenomenal guest, Juliet Hahn, who is a lady who has been on many, many podcasts that she hosts and has a story that's going to be incredible to tell us all. I think we're going to have the show, this 1 hour show, done in about 3 or 4 hours today. So she's already promised to come back another time. Before I have Juliet tell us who she is a little bit, I just want to give you a line from a song that you wouldn't think perhaps that I would appreciate, but it's a song from Eminem. And it's a song from his song Lose Yourself. And this is sort of ties into the theme of today's show. And the quote is, look, if you had one shot or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or just let it slip? This lady, Juliet Hahn, never lets the opportunity slip. Hi, Juliet, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. And I love Eminem. I mean, 90s rap, I totally vibe with that.
Well, the audience doesn't know, but before the show, what did we do for 2 minutes? We were rapping along to Eminem. Before I get to you talking about your podcasts, your life, the things you have overcome to be as successful as you are, I want to play about a minute from one of your podcasts. This podcast, I think, is called
Don't Die Curious.
Don't Die Curious. So let's play that, director, please, and then we'll rock and roll into Juliet.
We don't just see with our eyes, we see with all of our senses. The word chakra comes from Sanskrit, but it means spinning wheel or disc. We call it the Root Salience Leadership Map. And that map gives you literally a score by chakra so that you know which chakra to start.
This took me to the next level.
We are already out of our bodies. We're already too much in our heads. So we need to carve a path down and in. Symptoms of imbalance in the root chakra include:
What's the latest trend? 1 minute you're taping your mouth shut, the next you're supposed to sip a nightly glass of wine or swear it off. Egg yolks are the heroes, then they're the villains. Peptides, weighted vest, creatine for women, the noise never ends. So how do we know what actually works? I am Juliet Hahn, and this is Don't Die Curious. In every episode, I sit down with doctors, innovators, and everyday legends to separate the facts from the hype and uncover what really sharpens the mind, strengthens the body, and fuels the spirit. Stay curious. One good question can change your life forever.
That is an opening that is phenomenal. And by the way, I only eat the yellow part of the egg, I'm sorry to say. Okay, and so tell me about yourself, Juliet.
And thank you for that. I'm really excited about that podcast. It just launched the 10th of October, so it's new.
And I played one of your podcasts when you talked about dyslexia. We'll get into that a little later in the show today. And I couldn't stop listening. I did my 4-mile walk, and it lasted about the length of the walk, and it was phenomenal. But tell me a little bit about your background.
So I grew up in a town called Morristown, New Jersey. That is not it's not Morris. Everyone always gets confused. It's not the New York one. It is the Philly one, M-O-O. And 5 siblings. I played sports, really athletic. That was where I shined. School was really difficult, as you mentioned, the dyslexia. I did not find out until later in life, but I struggled really badly at school. I absolutely hated it, but I loved sports, and so that's kind of what took me into my journey. It took me into college, where then I studied communications and fell in love with the art of talking and networking and meeting people. Moved into New York City, became an ad exec, and then met my husband. We got married, had kids, and I decided I wanted to stay home with them. And it was really an awesome opportunity that I was given, that he did well enough and said, you know what, you can do this. This is great if this is what you want to do. And so I stayed home as as a stay-at-home mom, did like PTA stuff, which I really was not good at. And I really wasn't.
How could you not be good at that?
You know what? I shouldn't say that. I'm not, because of my dyslexia, there's things that I always was like, I don't love to do. And so I kind of gave my, like, I'll do it with another friend and we can be the room moms. I never wanted to like run the things, but I always gave a lot of ideas, but then it came to like paperwork and stuff like that. And I kind of would be like, nope, I'm going to give that to someone else.
I was a Board of Education member, I don't know if you know this,
Yes.
for 15 years in 2 different towns, 9 years in Shelton where I grew up. I was 24 years old when I first got elected. I won 5 out of 5 elections, I'll let you know.
Wow.
And then in my last 6 years were in Richfield. And the PTA presidents, and it was mostly mothers, there were some guys who were involved, but mostly mothers, were awesome. And there were about 15 or 20 ladies, especially at the Richfield PTA. They come to the Board of Ed meetings, every meeting, and they'd sit there and they'd be taking notes, and they kept us on our toes. They kept us on our toes.
Yeah, well, because of my hate for school, the last place I wanted to be is like in the school again more. Like I would go in for my kids and stuff like that, but if I did not have to go, every time I would go in, I would get like literally get a little sweaty. And it was because of just how I was treated in school. The town I grew up in was very affluent. Everyone pretty much was really good in school except the group that wasn't, and I was always just labeled as not paying attention or fooling around. And so I had a lot of stuff that I've worked through in my years. I feel like I've done a pretty good job with that. But that's where I stayed home and really, I love being a mom. I mean, that is what I was definitely born to do. My kids are my everything. I mean, I think a lot of moms say that. I, wake up, story time, taking them to music, digging in the dirt. I loved doing things where they could learn and I could teach them. Don't Die Curious has always kind of been a theme.
I love that name. And by the way, as a Board of Education member, and I think you went to school in Fairfield County for some years, right?
So my kids were 8 years in Darien, Connecticut.
How about you? Did you live in Darien?
I did not. I
Just your kids.
Grew up in New Jersey.
See, I never grew up, so I'm not sure what that means. I'm striving to
I
grow
should say
up.
that. I don't know that I grew up
Yeah.
either, right?
The thing that bothers me, what you just said, many things do, but when I heard you say that you didn't feel like you were treated well, that wasn't your word, my word, or you weren't treated the way you'd like to be treated, as a former Board of Education member, that troubles me because every student has a right to his or her education, and we have what they call differentiated instruction. Everybody doesn't learn the same way. Some people,
Right.
when I went to Yale, I went to Yale undergraduate and Duke Law School. Duke won last night in basketball, just so you know.
Oh, they do.
Okay, but I had a friend who, some similar classes, and he would sit in the poli-sci classes, for example, and not take a note, and he would just sit there and listen. Brilliant kid. I would take notes. I wouldn't even pay attention to what the professor was saying. Just take the notes down and go back and study
Right.
later on. So everyone has their own methodology for understanding and learning, and the school districts, especially districts like Richfield's in what they call ERG A, which is one of the best districts in the state, theoretically, you're supposed to give the kids what they need to learn. I know our district we try the hardest in that regard. But anyway, let's go back to your sports. You're obviously in good shape, not that I noticed, of course. You still work out, I'm sure, right?
I do. It's one of my favorite things I do. I work out with a trainer. I do hot yoga. I walk my dogs. I'm active. I very much enjoy that.
And what did you play? What sports in high school?
I played field hockey and lacrosse. I ran track. I swam. I did everything. But
Can
field
we-
hockey and lacrosse were and I played those in college.
Maybe our directors could put up the pictures we have of you from high school.
Oh gosh.
And let's see if we have any of those pictures in any order. Is that you?
That is me.
I'm afraid of you'd kick my butt, I'm sure. I think you were bigger in those days, maybe.
Well, yes, and but we won states every year. Like where I grew up, it was a powerhouse. So we were really, really good. And this was really funny because my sister, who was 2 years younger, my senior year, her sophomore year in field hockey, my maiden name was Williams, and it was the Williams sisters. We either scored or assisted to each other, so that was like some of my fondest memories. If I showed you pictures of my sister, she was always looking beautiful. I always looked like I was going to beat someone up in the pictures that were in the newspapers. We always laughed about that. But yeah, it was some of the most fond memories. The teams that I was on, the girls, I mean, we had fun, and that's where I shined. I mean, that's where I got a lot of my confidence, because in the classroom, I did not. I mean, I had teachers that were just, I was the dumb girl. I was the dumb jock. Why can't you pay attention? Why can't you do this? And I tried so hard, but then there was times where it was like, you know what? I'm gonna goof off. I'm gonna be the jokester.
You know, hearing that you were the quote dumb jock unquote again bothers me. Here's another picture of you.
Yeah.
Are you the woman? That's field hockey, right?
Yep, those are both me.
That's a sport that I've seen one game. A friend of ours
Love
had
it.
a daughter who played field hockey. The rules were you couldn't hit the ball from this spot, but you could from that spot.
And you can't use the other side of your stick. You have to use one side. Yeah.
The game I went to was 0-0 the game. First overtime 0-0, second overtime 0-0, and then they had one person got a goal in the free whatever.
Yep, and then you do a shootout.
So tell me, when did you first realize that you had learning issues?
So my mom was in education, and there was 5 of us. And so my oldest sister also struggled in school, one of my older sisters. And so there was always just known that we weren't that great in school. And it kind of was like, okay, well, you learned different, you struggled, you're not good at here. There was never a label. And when we were when we were actually tested when we were younger, it was like, okay, you're slow to read and you have this, but I didn't get services. My older sister went to a private school. She was more severe in dyslexia, where I was more severe in dyscalculia, which is the math portion. And girl, it's like, oh, girl math. That's what they told me.
Stop here 1 second, please. So there's dyslexia, which is what?
So dyslexia is the reading portion, the words.
Dyscalculia, like in calculus at the end of it.
Yep.
What's that?
So that's math. That's the math portion.
And what's the third one?
So dysgraphia is the writing portion, and then there's dyspraxia, which is a verbal, which I do not have, but I do have. We call it the 5 Ds. So we put ADHD in there as well. The Sopel Foundation that I do a lot of work for, and we kind of pull ourselves out of the neurodiversity sector because neurodiversity is an umbrella.
What's the word?
Neurodiversity. People like that.
Neuro, N-E-U-R-O, neuro?
Yes, and that it falls under autism, anxiety, all these different things, but it gets clumped. And when a teacher hears that or sees that, if you say you're neurodiverse, that can mean a million things. So we call it the 5 Ds, so you understand that it's learning.
I'm sorry, the we being who?
The Sopel Foundation.
And who's the Sopel Foundation?
So Brent Sopel is the founder of the Sopel Foundation, and it's one of my podcasts, the one that you listen to. It's called Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. Word blindness is what dyslexia was referred to in the late 1900s. Dyslexia was found actually by a German eye doctor, and it was thought to be something that you saw, and it wasn't thought to be your brain. So that's where word blindness came in. So we named the podcast Word Blindness. But Brent founded the Sopel Foundation 8 years ago.
Is Word Blindness the name of his podcast?
We co-host, yep, Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed.
Brent, by the way, the person you're referring to, played professional hockey for, I think, 18 years, he said.
And he won a Stanley Cup.
Won a Stanley Cup in 2010, I think.
Chicago,
as well.
yep.
Yeah, Chicago. I was going to ask him, my sister taught at a place called Thayer Academy in Boston, Braintree.
Okay.
A guy named Jeremy Roenick.
Oh, I know.
You've heard that name?
Well, he's actually played with Jeremy, but my sister went to college with Trevor, who's his younger brother. So the Roenick family, I've known them for a really long time.
Well, Jeremy Roenick was a student of hers at Thayer Academy.
Okay.
And it was always a big thing that so I don't watch a lot of hockey, but whenever you saw Jeremy Roenick, so I bet you they did play together.
They play together, yeah. They know each other. Mm-hmm.
So going back to your sports, and I was asking you before when you first realized you had reading issues. Was that 3rd or 4th, 5th grade more or less?
So in 3rd grade, everyone went to gifted and talented, and I went to special reading with the one kid that was always at the principal's office.
Did you realize that you were going to special ed, so to speak, and others went to? Did that psychologist know about that?
So what I told myself was that I wasn't creative. That everyone went to the other group was creative because they basically were doing a whole maze, and it was competitions with other schools, and they got to leave, and it was like this big thing. All my friends came running over to me and were like, "Where did you go?" And I had to read The Blue Dolphin with this teacher that was a slow talker, and it's still, oh, it was awful. And the little boy would flip his eyelids and like fool around, and it was the worst. But I would sit and giggle, and so I went home and I did say to my mom, and she said, "Oh, it's a creative thing. You're fine." But so that's what I told myself, that I wasn't creative. I felt dumb, but I never said those words. I said I wasn't creative.
Tell me about the impact, even as a 3rd grader. How did it impact your self-esteem?
So it's really interesting because I say I was born confident, and I really was. I had a lot of friends. was good at some things. I was the fastest kid in the whole school, boys and girls.
In running.
In running. Right. I was in elementary school, so yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, so in running.
Folks, we are having a good conversation. You guys are irrelevant. We're just having a conversation.
Exactly. So I was the fastest, right. And everyone always picked me first for gym class. Always wanted me.
So dodgeball, you were the first pick.
First pick. I was always if I wasn't the captain, I was the first pick. Everyone always wanted me on their team. So it just was like, okay, I'm not good at this, but I'm really good at this. I had a lot of friends. I was really a good friend. But I shied down a little bit when I was in the classroom because I would look, the teacher would be talking, and I can still remember this very vividly, and I would be listening, and then I would see everyone take their paper out, and I would be like, okay, what did I miss? I don't understand what I missed. And then it would be like, you're not paying attention, stop fooling around, stop talking to your friends. And I was very social. So I did a lot of times like talk to my friends because what the teacher was saying, I couldn't follow it.
And this is all important because we're sort of laying the foundation as to where you were and where you are today.
Yeah.
And it's very important to understand because a lot of parents don't necessarily want to have their child labeled.
Right.
I had a case in which a divorce case. The case was resolved, and then about a year or two later, an issue came up about one of the children needed some special ed help, and all of a sudden, everyone agreed, the school agreed, the parents agreed, and then the school wanted to call it autism. And all of a sudden, it caused a problem because of the, quote, labeling.
Right.
So tell me then, did you ever have an IEA, individual
IEP.
education plan?
So I didn't, it was like more like a 504. That was in
504 accommodation.
in high school because of wanting to take the SATs because I was getting highly recruited by a lot of Division I schools for athletics.
Just for the audience that didn't know, a 504 is a civil rights accommodation. It'd be sort of like if you couldn't hear well, you might put the student in the first row. If the person couldn't see well, you might get more accommodations and time for tests, whatever. I'm doing generally speaking. But the IEP is a special education situation. You have to reach certain criteria.
And you have to go to a neuropsychologist or a psychologist to get that. And so I was identified. So that's what a school can identify, they cannot diagnose. So that's what very different, and a lot of parents don't realize. They go through the school and then they don't actually get that blueprint of the student. They just get like an overall, and then when they move districts or whatever, it's like, well, wait, I should be getting some things. And that's where a lot of people, that's a lot of stuff that we do at the Sopel Foundation is talk about to parents to show them, these are the things you need to do to be able to get the accommodations for your child. So I was just identified as being a slow reader or struggling at school or not being good in math. So I had some accommodations. It wasn't until college is when I was diagnosed. And then later in life when my oldest, I was like, okay, I have dyscalculia, which was never a label, but felt better because it was like, I just thought it was dumb math. Like I really have no concept of math.
Your school district did not do you a service.
And it was a really good school district.
And that's part of the problem. In fact, on the Board of Ed, people say, gee whiz, when doing the budgets, why are we spending so much money on special education, for example? People would ask that at the budget meetings. And the answer is, there's an old expression when we ran for Board of Ed years ago, if you think the price of education's high, try the price of ignorance. Now this is not ignorance, but if you're not giving a child the services the child needs to get the best that person can be, then the cost of society is high.
Well, 50% of prison inmates, 50, are dyslexic. I could go on, and I know there are some districts that get it right, but majority of them don't. And majority of them don't. And it's really, even, I'm not gonna even call names out because we talked about where I lived, but in very wealthy districts, they don't do a good job sometimes. And it really depends, and it's the lack of understanding from different avenues, and a lot of people that don't understand dyslexia or don't understand the 5 Ds, but they maybe, oh, well, the scientist said this, but they actually have never been in our seat to how we learn, and that's what the Sopel Foundation does. We're dyslexics running, that are doing things for dyslexics, and because we understand how that brain works and what we go through every day.
There's also a concept, it used to be called mainstreaming, which essentially meant that children who were, shall we say, typical, which I hate that phrase, but more typical kids who don't have special needs have to have in their classes the kids who have special needs, and it's an 80-20
integrated, they call it
integrated whole
now.
thing.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately some teachers over the years, and more in the past than now, were sort of gee whiz, I don't want to deal with this kid. Why should I deal with this kid who needs an extra 20 minutes of my time when 3 other kids in 2 seconds get it? And so before I get into this more detail, tell me how sports got you to get self-esteem so that you could get out of high school, get into college, and feel good about yourself, which is a big stepping stone to where you are today.
Right. I mean, it was because that's where I was seen. I wasn't seen in school. I wasn't looked at. I was never acknowledged when I was in school, other than negative. You know, guidance counselors, you're never going to go to college unless you do this. But I was also very determined because of my self-esteem, because I had a good family life. I had parents that supported me. I had friends that supported me. And innately, I really did like myself. I knew that I struggled in things, but I also knew that I helped people. I could do things. I was a good friend. I was a good sister. I was a good, daughter. So I think coming from that, sports, it was just like, okay, this is where you are. I was acknowledged a lot. Like as you say, I was in the newspaper. So that's where I was seen. I was seen on the sports field.
So how'd you get into college finally? Where'd you go to school? And
so I went to Rowan University. That is a very long story, and I'm not going to go into it, but I was being highly recruited Division I for lacrosse.
Lacrosse was your key sport?
Well, both of them were really strong, but for this one, University of Maryland really wanted me, and they were one of the top schools at the time, which they still are.
In women's lacrosse, yeah.
But I couldn't get my SATs to be able to qualify for Division I, and I took it about, I want to say 50 times, but it was really soul crushing. But I am a fighter. I always had to fight. Every time I failed, I would get back up. I mean, that's one of the things I do attribute to where I am today, is because of my struggles. Nothing was ever really easy. I always had to figure it out myself, and I always say that, like, everything is figure-outable. I might just take a little longer for something, but when I do, watch out, because I got it and I'm going, and I will go full speed. So I could not get into University of Maryland. They wanted me to go to their junior college. My mom was like, please don't. And then probably a couple weeks before graduation.
From high school.
From high school. So I didn't know until then. And when I say, like, I have friends going to Yale, Penn State, full scholarships, like, everyone knew where they were going, and I did not know.
Athletically, you could have played Division I?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was being recruited even more than half of my teammates. I was one of the top recruits.
There's an old expression in sports, I think Coach K from Duke used to say it, it's not how many times you fall down, it's how quickly you get
back up. Yep. So I was given an opportunity for academic probation at Rowan University. At the time, it was called Glassboro State, and then Henry Rowan gave $100 million for their engineering program, so they changed the whole school. And then
is that where it
became
came
university.
from? I didn't know that.
And he grew up in Morristown. His family was in Morristown, so that's the kind of town I grew up in. And so when you struggled, you were off to boarding school. But I didn't come from a family that you went to boarding school. It was like, okay, you figure this out. So because of that, I actually went for corporate fitness, because I was like, oh, corporate, I can talk to anyone. I'm very personable.
Do you realize that you could talk your way?
Oh, I could charm. I mean, that's how I got through a lot of
that's
school.
why she's charming.
I could get through school using my personality. I mean, that is what a lot I did to kind of get through, who can in the class help me get through, what can I talk to a teacher about to take them off subject so they don't realize that I'm struggling. But that's think about that as a human. I went into okay, how can I get out of this and no one can really know how much I'm struggling, instead of going in just to actually learn, right? So imagine the anxiety that I didn't realize I was building up, but I had.
You mentioned the word anxiety, and as I watched the podcast with Scott, right?
Brent,
I keep calling him Scott, I don't know why. Brent and your son and your nephew. And I hadn't really realized until I watched that podcast the phrase anxiety, and how much, in fact, both of the young boys talked about the anxiety multiple times, and Brent also talked about anxiety, and so you taught me a lot. And so you had anxiety, and that could have led to food disorders, either anorexia or bulimia, a lot of things.
But Bobby, what you said is and that's the thing people don't realize. So a lot of times when you have the 5 Ds, anxiety is a part of it. It's a spectrum thing, right? It's a spectrum thing, ADHD, all those things. But if you think about what I would go as a little kid, realizing, okay, everyone else is reading, everyone else is doing this. I'm not doing this the same. What's going on? And then not being able to get it, and then maybe sometimes having people just dismiss you, okay, forget it. You're going to build up how can you figure this out? So corporate fitness, I was like, I'm great with people, and fitness. That's where I've gotten all my, all my self-confidence, right? I had to take anatomy and physiology. And I tried to drop out of school probably 35 times. My mom was like, you are not.
That class couldn't have been harder for what you'd, by the way, I want to say something.
Cut me under my legs.
I had a case one time in which a child needed more time.
Yeah.
Bright kid, but needed more time. So here's what the brilliant teacher did. The teacher said, our class starts at 7:30. Whenever I give a test it was math, I think it was. Whenever I give a test for math, you can come in at 7 o'clock. So all of you could have an extra half an hour to do your exam. And what that did, it masked the child who needed the extra 30 minutes.
And that's a great teacher.
Yeah, and it masked that 30 minutes. And what ended up happening is half the class would come in at 7 o'clock, whatever the exact time was, a half hour early. But I saw the teacher about a year or two ago. I did a show about a local high school, and I saw him in the lobby. I hadn't seen him for years. And I said, hey, remember that case we had and you gave the extra? Sure I do. That's being a teacher.
That's being a teacher. And
would have meant the world to you.
And listen, I had my family, my mom's a teacher. I have tons of people that are teachers, but one of the things my mom used to say to me all the time was, a lot of times teachers go into teaching because that's what they were good at. They don't understand that people can learn differently. And that's what she would tell me all the time. Don't think it's you. And so I was very good at being like, it's not that teachers treating me this way, it's her problem, not because of me. So I was my older sister took it very personally.
Who's the professional here?
Right, but I literally would be like, okay, it's their problem, well, I'm fine. Like, why? So I was very good at being able to do that.
Can you give me an example, and then I want to go on to further along the way. Tell me an example of how dyslexia, when you're, let's say, a freshman in high school, and by that time, if you're doing math, it's not a squared plus b squared equals c squared, the Pythagorean theorem, for example, it's a word problem. So all the problems are going to affect that. Tell me an example, if you can recall, of how your dyslexia would negatively impact you in the academic world.
So, I mean, this is going to be a hard story for people to hear, but as a freshman,
I want to hear it.
I was reading out loud is really difficult. So I just go slower when I'm reading out loud. And so people think like your words move or you flip B's and D's. I do flip my B's and D's, but not every dyslexic person does. Everyone's dyslexia kind of comes in a different way. So mine is flipping, I do flip my B's and D's. My words don't move, but some people's do. So reading out loud.
And words when you're reading on the page.
Yeah, sometimes like my sons would go like.
Skip lines?
Yeah, my nephew, it would his would come out and bounce around. That's a very specific dyslexia. And this is not why we were on the show, but there's a lot of different dyslexias. But so I was called to read out loud. The teacher was really not a very nice teacher. She knew I struggled in it. And I messed up a word. And she said in front of the entire class, "What are you, retarded?"
Didn't say that. I mean, no, I'm not lying to you. I'm not saying you're lying, but.
She said it in front of the entire class. And the entire class was like, oh. Now, as I said, I was a spunky kid. I came from a very good family.
What did you say?
I grabbed my backpack and I said, "What are you, a bitch?" And I ran out down to the principal's office. I couldn't breathe. I was hyperventilating. And I said to him, I just called Mrs., and I'm not going to say her name, a bitch. And he was like, "Why would you do that?" She was mean. And I go, "She called me retarded." And he's like, "Oh my God, why would she do that?"
We would have, if I were on the Board of Ed and I heard about that, I would have asked our lawyer even though I'm a lawyer, I'm not the lawyer for the board. I'd say, "Can you tell us what rights we have?" Because that's just, in Yiddish, the word is shanda. Yep. What shanda means tragic. They just don't do that.
And I was a freshman in high school. Now, I had friends in the class that were like, "But what did the whole school do? Juliet Williams, she's so cool. She called the teacher a bitch." I was humiliated. And first of all, my mom never cursed. My mom would have been a nun if she didn't have us. She was called down, and the teacher had to apologize. I had to apologize. I was taken out of her class. My mom's like, "She is out of her class, and not one of my other kids will ever get her." And as I was leaving, she looked at me, and my mom's 5 foot. She said, and I could get choked up. She said, "I'm not proud that you cursed at her. That's an adult. You don't speak like that. But never, ever let anyone ever take who you are away from you. You stand up for yourself for the rest of your life." And that is what I've always done.
I would have raised your allowance if I were your father. But I want to say to you, I'm going to give you an example that's not directly online. I went to high school. I was the only Jewish kid in my high school class of 300 people.
And that's right. That's hard.
So I was, and I'm Jewish. So I was a minority in that regard. And I didn't realize this, but when I was in sophomore in high school, and I was always in the top classes, et cetera, there was a code word that some people used, and they used to say, quote, must be, unquote. And the code word I found out to mean later on was must be Jewish. And it was, so it's not the same as what you got with
Yeah, but still.
you know, and no one ever stood up for me in that regard. And then about 7, 8 years ago, I saw a kid from my high school class who was supposedly a friend of mine. He came up to me and said to me, you know, I want to say, I really should have, I want to apologize to you because I never stood up for you when they said must be. I didn't punch the guy out then, but
Yeah.
so I understand from a different perspective how you may have felt in that situation.
But that shaped me. So I was always a fighter. And that's what, like, my older sister, that would have taken her out. She would have shrunk and shrunk. I was like, no, you're not going to shrink me. I'm going to show you, and I will show everyone. I will show you, guidance counselor, that tells me I'm not going to do it. I might not be taking corporate fitness, but now I'm going to go into communications. And that's what I did. And I clawed and fought my way out, and then, you know, raised my kids the way I also wanted to raise my kids.
So I want to get to that in a moment.
Yeah.
Before we leave dyslexia, because we can come back if we have more time, I do my homework, and I'm sure our good mutual friend Michelle Phillips told you this. I think the different kinds of dyslexia you talked about, we won't get into them in detail, would be the phonological dyslexia, surface dyslexia, rapid naming deficit, or rapid automatized naming, and double deficit dyslexia. Were those what you were referring to?
Yes, but isn't it also funny that all of those words are so hard to even say? So even dyslexia, I can't spell. I have to, when I spell dyslexia, it's like torture.
Well, I
because
cheated.
you
I had my
can't
glasses
spell.
on. But the point is, so those are the
Yes.
things that you did. So now I want to transition this into how you got to where you've gotten to. And I just want to read this thing I got out of your website. I do a lot of reading.
Oh, I
okay?
love this.
And it said, Juliet Hahn is a CCO, which means, I guess, communications
I'm a chief communications
officer, right? Podcast host, keynote speaker, and content creator. So you got the glasses on. Her mission in life is to give people a stage to share their stories. She believes deeply that everyone has a story and we all can learn from each other. We just need to listen. Juliet helps connect the dots so her guests can share and connect with more people. This is you. Your Next Stop podcast, we'll get into that, I guess that's one of the podcasts that you
There's
created.
my first one.
Highlighting people who have followed a purpose/passion and made it into a career, which you've done successfully. These shows are inspiring and will get you thinking. Through these conversations, Juliet guides people to explore their part in order to connect the dots to their own story. That connects with the thing I did from M&M. See, they're all connected
Yeah.
here, right? Everyone has a story, and it's a thorough sharing, through sharing actively and active listening, and sometimes laughing, that people connect to learn from one another. So I have this I read about you, and so now I want you to comment a little bit about these items and say how you got to be so successful, and I've got your CV also to talk about in a moment.
Right.
Run
Well,
with it.
It's really interesting. So as I said, I stayed home, and there was a period of my life when my kids got older, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, I know people.
What
talk,
age roughly were you?
So I was in my 40s.
Oh, you're more than 40s now? I didn't realize.
Oh no, I'm 50. I'm going to be 52.
I was paying you a compliment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, thanks. Sorry. So literal.
She looks great for 72, I'll tell you.
I do look great, right? So they were in elementary school, and now I'm at home, and I hate cooking. I hate doing like homemaking stuff. Like, that is not me. I think I've maybe baked a cookie once. I usually ate like all the cookie batter before it actually even became a cookie. Like, not my thing. My poor husband, when he worked in the city, it was like chicken surprise. He's like, oh.
You're surprised he made chicken.
Yeah, or no, it was like whatever sauce was in there. Always healthy, because we always were Whole Foods and stuff like that. But that was not my strong point. My strong point was playing, hanging with my kids, like exploring, doing fun things. Like, the house could be a giant mess, and I was like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to clean up everything as I'm home for the kids. I want to play with them. I want them to make messes. I want that. So as they got older, and we had just moved to our summer place. We moved from Connecticut out to eastern end of Long Island.
So you had 2 houses, you had one in Connecticut?
And my husband was out of work, and my oldest was in a dyslexic school.
So he wasn't working?
He was. So he had lost his job. We had 2 homes, and our son was in a private
no mortgages,
dyslexic
I'm
school.
sure.
So it was like, okay, you know what? We had a really good run. This is a lot of pressure for you. Let's wrap things up. Let's go out to the beach and let's just see. We always loved it out there. Let's just kind of see let's see how it will go. So we ended up staying and loving it. He got another job, and the kids, so we raised them out in the eastern end of Long Island. And I one day was taking a walk, and we had just moved, and I had done some fitness stuff when I was in Connecticut. So I like coached some moms that were my in the same boat as me. Like,
yoga type things?
Not yoga, but yoga. Later in life, I've gotten into yoga because I'm now namaste and calm. But I liked heavy lifting and running and doing like all kind of like more of that kind of stuff, like the intense workouts. So I would do that I did something called Ladies on the Lawn, and I would have the moms, as the kids were playing, like, okay, I'll run a workout. And so I did that, and I actually created a little business out of it and was like, this is awesome, I love this. But when we moved out, I didn't want to continue. It's a very small town. It's seasonal. We were always the summer people.
What town is it?
It's West Hampton.
West Hampton.
West Hampton.
So that's way out in the island.
Yes, and my kids went to Remsenburg, so there's a little inlet on the water on the bay side that's called Remsenburg. It's a very small little town, and that's where we are. And our kids go to West Hampton. So I didn't want, though, to like take away from any of the people that already had their established workouts. I was like, I'm not here to like change things up that way. I'm going to go to their workout classes. That's fine. I don't really want to do that. So one day I was taking a walk, and I was listening to all of a sudden that escapes my head, so it's not important, but it was about coming into your own creativity. And if you remember, when I was telling to you, I told myself I wasn't creative because I couldn't draw. So like anytime my kids had any projects, or I'd be like, you guys got this, or well, go talk to dad, he's the creative one. And I kind of gave that narrative, which now I look back and I'm like, it's so weird because I was always very positive in things, but that was one thing that I was like, nope, I can't do that. Like anytime it came up to school, nope, mom can't do your second grade math, please go find dad, or like call grandma. I really froze up because of all my trauma in school. So
still lasted. So 30 years later,
you saw I got emotional even talking about the teacher. Those kind of things, and teachers sometimes don't realize the impact that they have on a young child, making them feel less than. It stays with us forever. Like I thought I was over that. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Crying. There's crying in baseball, and there's crying in my show.
And I'm totally fine with that, but the fact that it still comes up always surprises me. I'm like, wow, okay. It's still raw, and that's what that's one of the reasons why doing stuff with the Sopal Foundation is so important to me, and that is all like my give back. I like work with them because that is so important to uplift and help other people.
That's your paying it forward.
It is my paying it
You've
forward.
seen that movie, right?
I did, and I love that. It's a great movie. So I'm walking the dogs, and I have 2 boxers. I do a lot of rescue work for the boxer organization that I have dogs, and I was like, I'm going to daydream. And this is what I would teach my clients after I started this business. I want to daydream. I want to think about what I want. Like, what do I want? I don't want to go play tennis and drink wine at lunch. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that wasn't for me. I wanted more. And so that's where your next stop was started. I ran home and I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. And my kids and my husband were like, well, do you know how? And I'm like, no, but it doesn't matter. I will try anything. And that's one of the things I know with my confidence. Like when I worked in New York City, I used to go for every job that they're like, you're not qualified. And I'm like, watch me. And I would get it because I know how to communicate. I know how to connect with people. And that is my gift. That is my superpower. It's one of the things that my dyslexia made me almost have to do, but it's also what I was born with. That is my innate gift.
I want to make an analogy. People who are blind supposedly have very good hearing because it's compensation.
Yes, exactly.
Do you think at a younger age, when you were having trouble reading, that it hit you that you were a good talker, which you are a lovely talker, and that was the way you would get through? Does that sort of connect? You mentioned that a little bit before.
100%. And that's why then when I went into communications in college, I just flew. All of a sudden I was like, I'm getting really good grades and I'm not even trying. This is so weird. I'm actually maybe smart. I always didn't think I was. I was like, I'm just fine.
When did you first realize you were, when did you first say, you know what, I'm smart? When did you first
That
say
probably wasn't until, a number of years ago. I would say I was good at things, but now I say I'm smart. And that's probably only 3 years where I'm like, I'm actually smart. I am a really smart woman, but I didn't identify with that because I wasn't smart in school.
Now, when I first heard your name, I heard it when I watched some of Michelle Phillips's podcasts, and yours was one I happened to watch. Must be your smile in the picture or whatever. And I had no idea until you started talking about dyslexia or whatever, that you were anything other than being smart.
Right. And Bobby, a lot of times people, when I talk to them, they'll say, and then they feel so bad, they're like, oh, wait a second, I didn't think there was anything wrong with you. What do you mean? And I'm like, okay, there's not anything wrong.
First of all, there's nothing.
No, but I understand when people
with
say that. They're like, oh, wait, you don't seem like you have dyslexia. And I'm like, well, what does that seem? It's a hidden disability. I am wildly ADHD. I use homeopathy. I've like learned.
Was it you're wildly ADHD?
ADHD. I mean, that was the thing that I was first diagnosed with. Like in school, not in school, but they were like, okay,
Are
she's
the
like
two
the boy.
related, do you think, the ADHD and the dyslexia? Are they totally different?
Oh, yeah, no. There's a big percentage. If you're dyslexic, and I'm going to get, Brent usually knows the statistics, but it's like a 30 or 40%. If you have one of the 5 Ds, you have multiple of the 5 Ds.
So the ADHD, does it affect you by being unable to focus on a long period of time?
And the thing about it, you have a hard time reading, you can't focus, kids are all over the place, you can't do math. I mean, school is like a torture chamber for all of it, you know, until you learn how to be able to do it. And that's one of the things that the Sobel Foundation is, we really give parents and kids, like, these are the tools to be able to get it better. But I did not realize I was smart until later in life. And that's when I started that podcast and then was like, wait a second, I started interviewing people and I'm like, I'm really good at this. Oh, wow, okay, there's something here. And now I know this is my path. This is what I was always meant to do. It maybe took me a little longer. Staying home with the kids, I would never change that for my life, but it now took me down. I mean, I was like the biggest storyteller for my kids. I mean, they still are like, oh my God, Mom, do you remember? I probably could have written 30 children books, but again, I would never have done that. No, like that's scary to me. That's something that even though I would dive into things I didn't know, but I knew I could always interview and connect. So anything, I could go into a room, not know anyone. I could go to a party, not know anyone. I could do that all the time. But you asked me to do something, especially with the work that I do with FedTech. I'm the chief communications officer for a biotech company. I was not allowed to take chemistry. I was told, you are too dumb to take science. You have to go take environment. So my learning disabilities, really science and math are where
You're bumming me out in some respect, not because of you, but some of the things that you were told.
I was told I was too dumb to take chemistry, that I would just take environmental science and see if I could pass that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How'd that make you feel?
Awful. Like I didn't matter. Absolutely awful. I hated the science people. And then I also, like science, I would always be like, even though I was so curious and fascinated about how body works and how all these things, but then I would have like an adverse, like, oh wait, no, okay, you can't do that.
I'm thinking about troubled kids.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about, it would not have been hard for you to turn another direction. And I'm not asking you what you did in high school, but maybe, and I'm reading the book by the victim of Epstein.
Okay.
Okay, and it's about the experiences she had. It's just, you gotta read it. It's so sad how this 15, 16, 17-year-old girl and the girls that were being recruited were getting to sexual activity. So you could have easily turned to that.
I mean, I like to say I had fun.
Oh.
I definitely at times in my life I drank too much. I'm saying like I had fun. I mean, I lived in New York City, and I mean, I definitely probably had more reckless things that I did at times.
Like starting at like what age? 13, 14, 15?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that I did.
So I mean, as I hear your story, it wouldn't have been, it would have been a slap at you, but you know, drinking, drugs, and all those.
And I didn't, because of my athletic, and I was very disciplined and knew. I never went, and I had didn't know that this was going to come up, but one of my sisters later in life was a drug addict. So, and when I was in that age where I could have, so I also was like, no, I'm not going to do anything to my parents to make them more stressed. So I was very good at not doing and going too far over.
But you know what I'm saying? You could
absolutely. That's
those,
why.
Yeah, those kind of comments you were getting, for you to be where you are now, is blanking incredible.
But that's what I mean. 50% of prison inmates. Like I need people to think about that. Suicide notes have dyslexic tendencies more than you would think. Mental health. A lot of mental health starts because of learning disabilities, and so it's something that's not. And there's all these things, scientists, this is how we should read, this reading program is what works. All of that is it makes me so angry because my dyslexic son learned differently than my dyslexic nephew, and they were told they had to do the same thing, but because they had parents that understood, we were able to supplement. But if you're a parent that doesn't understand that, you're going to listen to a school district because that's what they're telling you to do, and it's all coming from people that are not dyslexic. So it's really maddening.
When I watched the episode of Don't Die Curious, which is your most recent podcast,
Yes.
and I was able to watch you and your son and nephew and Brent.
Oh no, so that's word blindness.
Oh, is that for word?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's
oh,
all right,
that's
yeah.
his. But anyway, so I was watching you, and I was watching when your face was on, and I could see. Look, I read people, you read people,
Yeah.
and I know you very well now. And as I watched the show, I'm saying, look at the empathy she has. And I think there are at least 2 or 3 times I'm saying she's going to start crying.
Oh.
You know, and to then hear your son and your nephew talk about their dyslexia that they have, which is different than your dyslexia in some respects. And then when your son, I think it was, talked about the issue of self-esteem, it really hit me hard. I'm telling you.
Well, and he's innately.
And I'm not even their father.
No, I know. And the thing is, he's innate, like he's got the confidence as well. But if you think about someone that is born a little bit less, like my nephew definitely went through times where he wasn't as confident. But those kids were also diagnosed 2nd and 3rd grade. My son went to a Connecticut school that was just for dyslexia. And that.
He was outplaced, in other words?
Yeah, so he went to Southport, which I have to say Southport was one of the best places for him. Like, thank goodness. But most of the world could not afford that. Like, that is not something that is accessible for poorer kids.
Well, or the school district may have some financial obligations.
Well, and that's where, I mean, I'm not going to even touch
That'd be-
that because
that'd be
we're
our
in
next show.
Connecticut. I'm not going to even touch
We're
that.
only, we
But
only
what
have
we had to go through.
We have like 9 or 10 minutes left, and I
Yeah.
want to get to some more topics. We're going to have another show or 2 or 5.
Yes,
okay?
I love that.
But I was looking at your the titles of some of the podcasts that you have. I'll put my glasses on so I can read it better.
Okay.
And this is on Don't Die Curious, and
Yes.
I love that
That makes me
topic.
so happy.
That's why I got the M&M thing for you.
Yes.
Not M&Ms, but M&M.
Right.
You're probably saying, what's Bobby O know about M&M?
No,
You'd be
you're
surprised
very cool.
that-
Yeah, you're very cool. I
Okay.
got that.
And we'll get to that in a few moments, not how cool I am, but our threesome we have. Some of the topics that you have in Don't Die Curious, you have one of them is called How to Age Slowly. Well, you clearly have aged very slowly. Does that mean physically or mentally or emotionally or what?
All of it. That's why I started, and it all stemmed from me starting the work that I do with FetTech, because it's a regenerative medicine company, and learning about longevity. And even though I've always been into it, now that I'm like immersed in it, so continue. But so that's where this all came from.
Then you have female fertility. I didn't actually watch that one, no offense. It didn't
No,
think
yeah.
it, for me right now, it didn't.
I mean, it's past me too, but still, it's fascinating.
Well, you never know. The law school, they always have the case of the fertile octogenarian.
Right. You know.
Okay, I'm not going there.
Yeah, we don't. That's a whole nother.
Sorry, next. Okay, that'll be over vanilla milkshake. The next one I have is Chakras for Beginners. That's actually the 4th one. What was the 3rd show called? It had a gentleman. Oh, that's Dr. Kraft.
Dr. Kraft, his stories.
Oh.
I just hit my microphone.
Although
Sorry.
the thing I was a little surprised at, you said how great education he had. He only went to Harvard. I mean, Yale man.
But you heard his story. He was like backcountry, like where his family, where his mom was like, "Why are you speaking?" And he's like, "Mom, because I'm the top in the class." They had kids when they were like 11 and 12, and then he is this like world-renowned doctor. So cool.
That part of the show hit me. And by the way, I'm only teasing about Harvard.
No, I know. I know you're
it's a
from
pretty
Yale.
good.
My uncle went to there. I know this whole Harvard Yale thing.
Okay, but anyway, I had a friend of mine from Yale named Ron Davidson. Haven't thought about his name in years. From Arkansas.
Okay, yeah.
Dirt poor kid, and this is why you have to, this whole thing about no DEI that Trump is pushing. I said we wouldn't get into politics today.
No, we're not touching that. Yeah.
But the thing is that he taught me a lot. In fact, I lived in Shelton, Connecticut, so I'd bring all the kids home for dinners, whatever. When I brought a girl home who was Jewish for Passover Seder, my mother went, "Oh boy, this is great."
Yeah.
But Ron came, and everything that we did at Yale was such an amazing experience for him. He was the opposite of J.D. Vance. But let's go on from there. Chakras for Beginners, that's the one I showed.
Yeah, which is very cool.
That's cool. Anesthesiologist, why'd you have that show?
So he basically had a brain aneurysm when he was performing and was bedridden for almost 2 years, and he couldn't do his craft. But his parents were doctors, everyone was doctors, and he said when he realized that he couldn't do what he was doing, he realized he was a bit of and I'm not going to curse and say the word, but he's like, I didn't like myself. So he had to change his entire life. And because of, oh, I'm not the doctor anymore, and I'm not the status. He's in California in a very area, and his wife is a very esteemed doctor. And he's like, we ran in circles, and I realized, are these people really even my friends? And so that's more of the mental part of if you want to live longer and healthy, what you need to do inside, what you also need to do outside, but also what you need to do mentally. And it really starts with inside. And that's all really started my curiosity. I've always been curious but with Fet Tech and getting that opportunity to be able to have people like this that I'm now attached to, that I can talk to, and they're accessible for me to be able to interview.
So that was, I didn't see that one yet. How to optimize was one of them. From nightlife to, I'm not sure what that one is.
So regenerative farming. That's a really interesting, about food and where you get your nutrients, and not giving knowledge about the soil, just things that I'm curious about, so I get to ask the questions about it.
We only have 5 minutes left of this particular show, so
Okay.
I want to jump to something more personal nature. Today's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And we have a mutual friend whose birthday it is today, Michelle Phillips, who's been on my show at least a dozen times.
Yes.
And she and I met, that's how I got to know you. And we met in an airport. She asked me, 12 years ago, I was going to see my daughter in college. And this lady I don't even know, who's a beautiful lady, who says, "Sir, would you please watch my suitcase?"
Right.
And I said, "You don't know me, I could steal everything." And it turned out we got to be friends, and we are on shows together and different things. And so I wanted to have a little bit of a special thing to give to you, because you drove all the way from Long Island to be here. So I want to give you, as my phone is ringing now, although they're not supposed to call me during the show.
When people are calling you for your birthday.
Yeah, that's right. But I want to have a couple of things for you. Now, first of all, this is for...
Wait, I'm getting presents on your birthday?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So this is for you for driving all the way from Long Island.
Oh,
I actually wanted to buy a birthday gift for the light lady,
Oh, okay.
Michelle
Oh, that's
Phillips.
wonderful. I'll give
so
that to
I
her.
bought her a white rose,
Oh.
and I said I can't give her a rose without giving you a rose.
That's very
So I'm
sweet.
going to give you these right
Thank
now.
you
One
so
is for
much.
you. I'll take
Oh
my
my
hug
gosh.
after the show.
Yes. Oh,
Because if we
that's
get off,
so
we'll-
sweet.
make sure you get to Michelle, who's
Yeah, I don't
probably
wanna-
watching right now.
I don't want to mess up my
And
my
I decided
microphone.
we have to have
Oop, I just knocked that over.
cupcakes for our birthdays. And so you'll see on these cupcakes, I don't know if you can see it, some say B for, you can't see it, for Bobby
for Bobby,
O.
yep.
And some say M, here it is right here, M
Oh, that's
for
perfect. Michelle.
Michelle. And so we're
Oh,
going to
that's so
celebrate
wonderful.
that. I even brought plates.
Oh.
I'm going to give you a B for Bobby because you're with me
Okay,
today.
okay, yeah.
You know, you're my date today, not Michelle.
Okay, right.
So here is this is a Bobby, and I have for my staff, my director, et cetera. Here's a B for Bobby. You don't have to eat it. I don't know if it
Thank you.
affects your diet.
I can eat it. I'm not going to eat it right now because I'll
What-
make
what-
a mess.
oh,
Well, I mean,
okay.
I guess I could, but I'm going to make a mess with it. All right.
Wait a minute. Do you think I know you at
Oh,
all?
okay, no, okay, perfect.
But
I know I look like that, but remember I played sports. I can.
So this is the cupcake, and I'm going to take a bite of one of the Bobby O, and I even have 3 or 4 cupcakes with the M for Michelle.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So-
you want to do a cheers?
Well, you can do the cheers and the toast. How about that?
Okay.
Oh, this is a B for Bobby. Isn't this kind of cool? And I have a baker friend who doesn't have a bakery, but she bakes for us. The show I sent you about the women's
Cheers.
lacrosse team,
Yeah, which is very cool.
she made the cookies.
Cheers. Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, so I'm going to take a bite with my makeup and my lipstick.
Is that good?
Yeah, oh, really good.
So I have some of those for Michelle, and I wanted to celebrate our birthdays together. See, we were talking before the show that Michelle was a little envious
very
of you.
good.
Was she a little envious that you were
She said, wait, you're driving? Do I have like cupcake all over my face?
gorgeous? It's beautiful.
Is it all over my face?
No, no.
She said, I can't believe you're driving out to see Bobby. And I said, yeah, he asked me to be on the show. She's like, I know, I've always done it Zoom. And I was like, no, if someone asks me to do something and I'm like, why not? Why not? If you have a live show, this is where I light up. I love this. This is what I'm meant to do. I'm coming out.
Deborah Boone, right? You lit up my life.
Yes.
We only have like a minute and a half or 2 minutes left. We didn't mention much about Fet Tech. Maybe I'll hold that to the next time.
Okay.
But just tell me briefly, how is it that someone who didn't take biology or anatomy and physiology, whatever,
Chemistry, all that.
chemistry, is a CCO of a Fet Tech, which is a biomedical
Yeah, I mean, Fat Tech is incredible. It's a family-owned husband and wife. I actually went to high school with Danielle Fetty, who is the co-founder, and she's also dyslexic. We played lacrosse together, and she hired me as her storytelling consultant as the company really started booming. The things we're doing in the medical world is incredible, and it's all natural. You have to check it out because we're really making some incredible changes.
We'll focus on that in the next show we do.
Yep, exactly. So that's how I got involved.
And I'll bet you right now that you are not only the CCO, but you are, what's the CCO, right?
Yep.
That you're also a very integral part of planning and analysis, and you're much beyond that kind of activity.
Oh, I definitely am. I mean, I am smart now. I know I'm smart, what I have been doing with this company, and it was the opportunity to be able to do it.
So the last 30 seconds, you're going to get the last word for today, and I'd like you to tell me if there's someone out there watching who has some kind of disability that they have to overcome or work with or adjust. What's your thought for that person or people?
You need to not just trust the school is going to help and give you direction, and I know that's hard to hear. I don't like to hear that, but you have to learn all different aspects. You need to get the blueprint for your child, so getting that neuropsych is really, really important outside the school, because the school could only identify, they can't diagnose, and you need that diagnosis to be able then to lifelong get services.
Our friend Michelle wrote a book called Happiness is a Habit, and she has another book coming out, which I'm going to go out to the book opening in December.
Yes.
But Happiness of a Habit, one thing is open up, communicate with people, and be willing to be a friend. And because she opened up to me, and she asked the stewardess to sit next to me on the airplane, I've now met you, and who knows what the next step will be with you or anyone else. I want to thank you so very much for coming out here and not getting ice on your clothes.
I know, I could be a mess.
This has been Bobo Potster on The Bobby O Show with the wonderful, delightful, and charismatic Juliet Hahn.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.